Hello and welcome to Advancing Your Excel Skills. This is presented by Working with Hope and Braintek. Working with Hope is a nonprofit that's focused on invisible diseases, started by the founder, Hope Hill. And my name is Greg Brainerd. I'm the founder of Braintek. We're a computer managed services company helping small businesses in the Houston area since 2003. I'm also the author of Cybersecurity, Protecting Your Business Against Hackers. Today, we're going to talk about advancing some of your Excel skills. So we're going to build a sales speedometer. We're going to build a comparative version of that called the sales column bar. We're going to talk about conditional formulas, drop downs using data validation. We're going to talk about the pick from a drop down option, the formula auditing tool, index and matching, along with some XLOOKUP. We're going to talk about tables, sheet views, text functions, COUNTIF functions, form controls, and how to build this cool navigation button. All right, let's get started. So here we've got a speedometer that we want to build, and we're going to base this on quarterly sales objectives. So in Q1, I want to sell $250,000 of new sales, and Q2, $350,000, etc. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our data here, and we're going to have a start that's going to indicate 0. And then we're going to have our annual goal, which is we're just going to sum this up, and we come up with $1.2 million for our annual goal. All right. Now let's go ahead and create our first chart that we're going to use for this. So we're going to go to Insert. We're going to pick the circle charts, and we're going to pick a donut. Now let's go ahead and move this to position for us. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and select Data, and we're going to add. So the first thing we want to do is we want the series name to be the speedometer, and then the series values are going to be these here. All right, and we're done with that for now. So here's our speedometer to start with, and I want to rename this. So we're going to call this the sales speedometer. We're going to get rid of the legend, so just select it and delete it. Now the orientation is wrong, and some other things. So we're going to customize this. To start with, we're going to get rid of the border. So I don't want any border on this, and now it tightens it up a little bit. We're going to click on the large green circle here, and under the fill, we're going to put no fill on that. We're going to change the color of each one of these. I want the first quarter to be red, the second quarter to be orange, the third quarter to be green, and the fourth can be purple. That's fine. Now let's go ahead and select the whole circle, and we need to change our orientation. So we're going to use this bar option over here, and the angle of first slice is what we're going to change to 270, and that rotates the whole thing. Next, we're going to click on the circle again, and we're going to use the plus sign, and we're going to add some data labels. But I want to do more options on my data labels, and so it automatically just decided that it wants this. So let's go back over this little label options. We're going to uncheck the leader line. We're going to uncheck value, and we want the values from a cell range. So we're going to go ahead and select Q1 through Q4. And unfortunately, it puts it in the wrong position, so we'll have to move them around. We're going to go ahead and first bold it by doing Control B, and then we're going to grab Q4 here, and we're going to move it into position. And Q3, Q2, and Q1. All right, so we've got part of our speedometer set up, and now we need to move on to the next part. All right, so this is going to be the pointer. The pointer's got 3 elements that we need. So the first one is going to be the sales so far. That's how much sales we've sold that we're going to indicate on the speedometer. Next is we need a size of the pointer. So this is going to be equal to the annual goal. So we're going to start with annual goal, and we're going to modify this formula. We're going to multiply that times 0.2, so I want 2% of that. And then we have the end of the speedometer. So that's going to be 2 different formulas. Sum this together, and we're going to minus the sum of these 2. All right. Next, we're going to put a data validation constraint on the sales so far so we don't go below or above our maximums. So let's come over here to data and data validation. And we want this to be a decimal number that's between, and we're going to just pick 0 for that one, and we're going to, which is B3, and then we're going to pick B8 for the next one, and we're going to click OK. So anytime this goes, either if we type in a negative number or something above our annual goal, it's going to fail. If we change our annual goal, it'll automatically update for us. All right, so now we need to create the next chart. So we're going to come over here, right click, and select data. And we're going to add, and the series name is going to be pointer, and our series values are going to be these 3 values here. All right, click OK. Now we need to change the chart type. So we're going to right click and change the chart type, and you'll see that we're under the combo list here. We can see our speedometer is a donut, and our pointer is also a donut. So we're going to change this to a pie. And it's the wrong orientation also, but we're going to make a couple of similar things that we did to the other one. So we're going to start off with no borders. Oops, no, that didn't do it. So let's select it and no border. And then we're going to change some colors here. So the green one we don't want, so we're going to get rid of that. The blue one we don't want, we're going to get rid of that. And this orange sliver, that's the one we do want, we're going to change the color to black. But it's in the wrong place. So we need to change the whole chart to 270. And then let's test it out and make sure that we got that correct. So 0 at the bottom and 1.2 takes it all the way up. And if we do 125, it tells us it's too big. And if we do -1, it's too big. So it looks like we got it correct. All right, so we've got our speedometer going. Now the next thing we need to do is we're going to add a text box. Text box, here we go. And we're going to draw that. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this equal to our sales so far. Then I want to select it and I want to center it up in the box. And we can make it bold, and we can make it some other color like blue or something. I don't like that blue. Let's try this blue. All right, and let's make the font a little bit bigger. All right, and then I want a no fill on it and a no line on it. We're going to do the same thing with a no fill and a no line on the chart itself. And then lastly, because we're going to move this stuff around, we're going to select both of them. And to do that, I held the Shift key, selected one, and then selected the other. I'm going to right click and group. All right, there's the sales speedometer. So you can, of course, widen it up or make it smaller, whatever you want. Next, we're going to move on to the a sales column chart. Now, you can see here that it's a little bit different. However, it's not too much. So we're going to put in, we got the same quarterly numbers. This is not a total. This is what we've sold so far. And let's go ahead and add our chart to it. So we're going to go over here to Insert, Column Chart. And this one automatically picked all of our stuff together. But the column chart needs to be a column and not multiple columns. So we're going to go ahead and we can either switch the row column data here, which we're going to do, and or you can go to select data, and then you can do it that way as well. We're going to turn off the grid lines on this. We're going to delete the legend, and we're going to rename this to the sales column chart. All right, and let's make it a lot thinner. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, now we need this to change a little bit, so we're going to select this top one, which is our sales so far, and we're going to right click and we're going to change the chart type for that particular item. So again, it brings us to the combo, and we've got multiples that we can choose from. So we're going to pick the sales so far, and we're going to change that to a line with markers. So you can see it changed it to a little green dot in the middle of this. That's exactly what we want. And it altered our stuff here. So our chart's looking a little bit better. But before we move into this, I want to change our legend over here. So we're going to come over here to the axis options. we're going to change the majority to our sales goal. So I want to sell 1.1 million. There we go. And then I want the number over here to have a dollar sign, so we're going to change that to currency. And then let's shrink this up a little bit more. All right. Now let's go ahead and make some changes to the colors. So very similar to what we did on the speedometer, we're going to change our first one to red. We're going to change this one to orange. This one's going to be green, and we'll leave the last one as purple. Now we're going to go ahead and select our marker, and we're going to change the marker line to black, but as you can see, nothing really changed on that. We're going to expand marker here, and we'll change it also to black. We'll change this one to black. So now we should have a black dot, and if we expand marker options here, we can choose the built-in marker and we can make changes to it. So we're going to make this a line, and then depending on how wide you want this, you just kind of expand this out. And of course we can shrink this up a little bit as well. That's a bit too much, but we can come back over here to our marker and make it as wide as we want. Now if we change our sales goal, or our sales so far, you can see that it comes to the bottom or goes up to the top. We also should go under the data validation, and we can set our decimal between whatever the constraints are. So you want your minimum to be 0, and then your maximum to be, $1.2 million or whatever. And so that way, if you go 0, it goes to the bottom. But if I do -5, it fails. And if I do 1, 3, 5, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, it's also too much. So it won't go above our chart. But that's up to you on how you want that to look. All right, next. Let's move on to conditional formulas. We don't need this anymore, so let's get rid of that. The conditional formulas are, we're going to talk about the and, or, and not formulas. So you can do a lot of this kind of functionality within regular if statements, but this makes it a little bit easier for us. So we're going to start with how to do some text-based with and here's the formula, and as you can see it says equal and the way that this is going to read is if A2 is Greg, and if A3 is Bob, and if A4 is Jack, then it's going to display true. So as you can see, I've got currently a false because A2 is Greg, A3 is blank, and A4 is Jack. So if I put in Bob here, it changes the value to true. If I move the values around, so I've got Greg, Jack, and Bob, that's also false. So what we want to do is make sure that our values are true in this case. Now we're going to do a similar test over here with numbers, and what we're going to do is we're going to say if C2 is greater than or equal to 50, and C2 is greater than or less than or equal to 100, then it's true. And as you can see right now, it is true. But if we type in 49, it becomes false. If we do 101, it's false. So anything within the range 50 to 100 is going to be true in this particular case. Now, or formulas are kind of an either or options can be true or not. So let's take a look at the first one. So if A6 is Greg, or A6 is Jack, or A6 is Bob, I want you to return true. If that's not the case, then it's false. So we're going to do blank, it's false. If I do Barry, it's false. But if I do Greg, true, Bob, true, Jack, true. Now if we look at the numbers case here, we have if C6 is less than 0, or if C6 is greater than 10, then where it's going to be true. Now right now we're in between that range, so we're at 9, so it's currently false. So if I do 0, it's false because it wasn't equal to. So -1 is true, and 11 is also true, but 10, 5 are all false. Now let's take a look at not formulas. So not is going to be the opposite of whatever the condition is. So if the condition is true, A6 or A2 is equal to Greg, but I want the opposite. So I want not if A6 is equal to Greg not. So let's take a look at how that works. So here we have, if A9 is not equal to Greg, then it's true. And so it's kind of the opposite. So it's Bob, and so that's not Greg, so that's true. Jack, empty. But if I type in Greg, it's now false because I do not want Greg in this particular case. With numbers, we could do the same thing. If C9 is not less than 100, then it's true. So as you can see, 101 is definitely greater than 100, so it's currently true. So if I type in 99, it's now false. Now this is interesting. I set up this one. This is checking to see if D9 is true or not. This, by default, whatever this value is, it's looking for true because it, as you solve the equation, it's looking for true or false answers. So if D9 is not true, then display true. And as you can see here, D9 is currently false, so this shows true. If I do that, where now D9 is true, now it's false. So nots are, just remember, the opposites of what we're looking for. All right, so next we're going to talk about drop downs using data validation. So I've got my list of items here. We're going to click on an empty cell and we're going to go to data validation. And in the allowed drop down, we're going to pick list. And then we're going to grab our source. And we're going to click OK. So you can see that it created a little drop down on this cell. And automatically I have a unique value. So cat is in here 3 different times, but it only shows it 1 time. So now I can pick it. Now if I want to reference, hey, what's in that drop down? I just come over here to another cell and I just reference it, B1. And now anytime that I change the cell value, it changes D1 as well. And that's how you set up a drop down using data validation. All right, so what is the pick from drop down? So you may have seen this in the menu if you right click on a cell and you go to pick from a drop down and it creates this little empty box and I don't know what that is, right? So nothing. What it is you put it underneath a list of already, a column that already has a list of items above it. So we have a bunch of fruit here. We right click and pick from the drop down. It gives us a little drop down just like we did in the data validation, but it's only this list. So it can pick banana. And you notice that it is unique values again as well. So we have several recurring or repeats in this. It does not work horizontally. So if I do pick for drop down, it's blank. And of course, if I don't have anything over here, it's blank as well. So you must be under this list. It's handy if you want to just keep on typing out of the same things. You don't want to remember the spelling if it's kind of complex. So, pretty cool. All right, well, let's talk about some formula auditing. Sometimes we have formulas that are a little challenging for us. And so we want to figure out why we're not getting the result that we thought we were going to get. So right here I've got some numbers in A and B, and then I've got I've got 2 calculations going on. So let's take a look at this first one. So I've got if the average of A2 through A5 is greater than 50, then I want to sum A2 and A5. If it's not greater than 50, let's just report 0. So you can see here it's got a 10. And then similarly, I got this other formula, which is the exact same formula, but I made 1 change. If the average of A2 through A50 is less than 50, then sum B2 through B5. Otherwise, it's 0. And you can see the result here is 0. So I don't want to do all the math, so let's go over to formulas and do evaluate formula. It brings up this little wizard for us. And what it's going to do is it's going to do the first calculation, which is underlined, and it's going to do average A2 through A5. So let's hit evaluate to step through this. So first it calculates that out and says, okay, that's 250. So then the next thing it's going to do, it's going to evaluate, is 250 greater than 50? It is. So now that's true. So the next step it's going to do is going to sum B2 through B5. And that becomes 10. Now it's going to do the last step. If true, 10. And if it's not true, but it is, it'll be 0. So in this case, it's going to be 10. All right, let's check out this one and do the same thing. So again, we're going to do the average, which is 250. Is 250 less than 50? Nope. So now it jumps to do the whole evaluation. It's going to skip over some. So if false, it should do 0, which it does. And that's how you use evaluate formulas. So anytime you've got formulas that are not giving you exactly what you're looking for, you can do that. And some other helpful tips is what you can do is you can, holding the Control-Alt key, you can break this up so that using the Alt key, so that you can maybe read your formula a little bit better as well. All right, next we're going to talk about index match, and then we're going to see how this stacks up against XLOOKUP. Shrink this back up. I've got this list of characters and home planets from Star Wars. I found this on some website. But what we're going to do is we're going to type in the index in order to get the planet and the name of the character. So right now I'm on index 4 and it's pulling up Yoda. Well, you'll notice that Yoda's on row 5. This isn't looking at the row, it's looking at the index of the data set that we're looking at, which is this. So if we start here, 1 would be Anakin and Thrawn would be 16. So we type in 1 and we get Anakin, we do 16 and we get Thrawn. Let's take a look at the formula for this. So we're going to do index A through A17 using G2 as our lookup. So if I just select it, you can see that that's exactly what it's doing. It's looking at 16 and then it's finding that index out of here and it's going to report back whatever that index number is supposed to be for. So in this case, 16 is Thrawn. If we come down here and look at the planet, it's a slightly different version of the same formula. So instead of looking at just column A, we're looking at both A and B. We're still using G2 as our index number, and we're outputting the number 2 over here is the row that we're going to output. So if we had multiple rows, like 3 or 4, you could put in there, 3 or 4, or if you wanted to go back and choose 1, you could do that. So now it's Thrawn. Well, great, that's great, but I don't know the index of whatever's in my range. So next we're going to type in the name and we'll get the index. So in this case we typed in Yoda and we got 4. Let's type in Han Solo and we get 7. This formula is using match. So let's break this down. So match G7, which is what we inputted. We're going to look in the range A2 through A17 and the 0 over here is the match type, so this is going to be as an exact match or not. I want it to be exact, so 0 is the one that I want to use. Well, that's nice, but I don't think the index is real helpful. All right, so let's combine both index and match, and so we'll type in a name. We'll do Han Solo again, and we get Corellium. So let's take a look. What we're doing is we're using both formulas so that we can just type out what we want. So in this one, we're using match to begin with, which is in the index's place, if we go back to the original formula. So we're doing match from G11, which is where we typed in Han Solo. We're looking from A2 to A17, and we're returning an exact match. So we type in Han Solo, it gets us back the index, which is 7. Then next, it's looking at the index. So I've got my index number 7 here, and we're going to be looking through the home planets, B2 through B17, and we're going to return the first column, which is the column we're on. Or we could exclude the comma 1 and not use it at all. So let's do that. And you can see it's the same thing as, so either way. Now that's nice, but if we combine this with a data validation dropdown, I can just select someone, and then from there it just looks at the planet. So it's the same formula. We're just using the data validation to help us, so we don't have to type in master mace window. Now here's something that's pretty cool we can do with match and index, and we're going to do this with XLOOKUP as well. We have this set of data which is multiple columns, so we're going to look and try to get the price for this combination. If the combination doesn't match, then it'll come up with an error message. So we have some glass cups. We have 4 of them. They're clear and they're 10. So we've got glass cups, 4 clear, and they're 10. So let's do the same thing but with something else. So we're going to do plastic cups, and you can see there's no clear plastic cups in our list. We got plastic yellow, we have plastic pink, but we don't have any clear ones. So let's change this to pink, and now we get a price of $6.50, which is this one. This plastic 4 pink is $6.50. We can also do this with our our cups and plates. Cups and plates, plastic, 4 pink, and we get 12. If we change this to yellow, we don't have any quantity of 4 that are in yellow, so we would put here NA. Now let's take a look at this formula. And here is what we got. So this looks pretty complex, but let's break this down. Starting with match, which is right here, we are looking for the match of all 3 columns. So we start off on typing, here we're going to type in G21. We're looking that up in this field. So we're looking in the A column for G21. For G22, we're looking in the B column, and G23, we're looking in the C column. Once it finds the match across all 3, then it uses that to look up the index, and we want to find the price. So in the D column. Let's change this to 2, and then we get $10. Now we can do the exact same thing. These 3 fields are the exact same. They're just data validation drop-downs. But here we're using X lookup instead. So let's change this to plastic. And you can see plastic cups 4 pink are $6.50. There it is right there. So this X lookup is almost the same, but slightly easier to do. So you don't have the word match in here. But it's the same formula that we're using. So if we're looking at G29, we're looking up the A column. In G30, we're looking up the B column. And G31, we're looking up the C column. After it comes up with that, then it looks up the price from the D column and gives us that. So that's how you could use either X lookup or index and match to do a multi-lookup across a more complex data range. All right, let's take a look at tables. Now, you're looking at a data range here, not a table. So let's go ahead and select our data range here. We're going to go to Insert and Table. Our table does have headers, so we're going to make sure that that's checked. And it automatically stylizes it, and it creates our little drop downs. So the table's advantages over the data range is that we can stylize it with different colors. We automatically have the ability to sort and filter. We can add a total row at the bottom, so now it's totaled up the ages for us. If we, let's take that off. If we add another character, let's say, who can we add here? Yaddle. I don't know if I know how to spell her name, but it automatically is added to the table without any effort. And then, of course, if we go back to our table design, we can add the totals, we can change the banded rows, we can bold the first column or the last column, we can band the columns together, we can remove or add the filter buttons, decide we don't have a header row, so all kinds of things you can do with this. Nice thing, it'll automatically help you with a pivot table here, so we can summarize that in a pivot table. Let's do that in the existing worksheet, and we're going to put that here. So we can get our pivot table going right here on the same sheet or somewhere else. You can very easily come over here and add a pivot chart. And now we have our chart going on. So we can do a lot of different things with this. Now let's say that I don't want any of this stuff, so let's delete all this. And I want to go back to a data range over here under table design. You can convert this back to a range. It'll convert it. Now it doesn't get rid of any of the styling, so we'll have to do that manually. unfortunately. No borders, no fill, black, and we can turn off the bold. And we can get rid of the total. And that's how we work with tables. Now we're going to work with tables in the next one, which is in sheet views. So sheet views are nice. There's a couple of different advantages. So let's go to view here. And so let's say that I already have a couple of views already saved. So I've got view 1 here. And what it is once I'm in the view, you can see that it's denoted with these black bars and columns. And then there's a little eyeball under sheet views. So it's very quickly, so any kind of data that I want to look at a glance, I can save these views. The other advantage is if I'm collaborating with somebody over 365 and we're both editing the document at the same time, if I'm working in a sheet view, when I make changes to my view, let's say that I change my filter, my sorting, whatever, within my view, that won't be shown to the other person. So now if I add data, that would be shown to the other person. But I'll be able to operate in my view without affecting anybody else. You can, of course, under options here, you can rename the views, duplicate them, delete them. You can add new ones and you can get out of it. So when you exit out, it leaves you in the filtered state, but we can come out of that and just select all, and now we're back to everything that we have. Now let's take a look at some text functions. Text functions are fun. Some of the stuff you can do with formatting the cell, and we'll kind of compare between the two. But here's what we're going to do with this. All right, so I got a number in A1, 15, and I want in B1, we're formatting that to look like money. Pretty easy. Let's take a look at the formula for that. Equals text, and we're referencing A1, and we're going to put in there that we want a $, pound, comma, pound, pound, and then we have the number 0.00. So if I was to change this to 5, it changes to $5. If this is negative, it's a negative $1. If I want to go back to something that has commas, it automatically puts the commas in there. Now you can already see if we do A1 here, and if we right click and format the cell, you can do that already with currency very easily, and it does the same thing for you very quickly. But let's take a look at the date. So we've got a date in A2, and I've reordered in B2 the month and the day. But there's a whole bunch of different things you can do with this. Let's take a look. So equals text A2, and then we have the format of it. So I've got day / month / year. So if I start altering this, let's say I want the year shown in 2 digits. We can do that pretty easily. If I want the leading zeros to go away, I remove one of the D's or one of the M's, and it changes it to that. Let's say I want to keep the leading 0, and we'll say 7. And by the way, I'm using the today command for the date. And let's do 1/24. You can see I've got the leading 0 for the day, but not the month. But if I add that back, I've got the leading zeros at that point. Now, if I reference this and I just go to format that cell, now you can see here we've got some options, but we don't have the exact option that we're currently using, which is why you can do this. Now, if you come down to custom, you'll see that there's other options in here that you can use to format your data as well. So they're not all. And some of these will show you the formula, kind of like we have in the money, where it shows you what that little format is. But of course, you can just Google search this and find these those templates to make this happen. Let's take a look at the percentage. So we've got our sales tax, 0.0825. And if we do equal text A3 and 0.0 percent sign, then it shows it to this. Now notice it does round it for us. If I do A3 and I format this using the percentage here, it does not automatically round it. So just be cautious about that. Now, if I want to round, you can add the round command, and then which number I want to round. So if I choose 1, it's rounding 8. If I do 2, it's rounding the next decimal place. If I do 3, it comes up to the same thing. So it just depends on what you want to do with that. All right, so now we're going to do some text-based stuff. So we've got Greg Brainerd here, all lowercase, but you can see here we've got the first initial of both letters or words capitalized. So we're using the proper function, and all it does is just uppercase that first initial. Here we're using the substitute command. So we've got Greg, comma, is my a, comma, friend. Well, I don't need all those commas. So what I want to do is I've got substitute, whatever's in A6. I'm going to substitute the word Greg. I mean, anytime I find the word Greg, I'm going to replace it with two @ symbols. So in this case, we've got @ comma, is my a, comma, friend. Well, let's say I want to get rid of the commas. Let's put in comma, and I want to put a space in there instead. Greg is a friend. Let's get rid of the a, because that doesn't make any sense. And there, Greg is my friend. There we go. Now, you can see here I've got Greg in first initial capitalized and the rest is lowercase, but I want it all uppercase. We can use the upper command, so it takes any character and converts it to the uppercase version of it. And similarly, we can do the lowercase command to turn them all into lowercase. And there's other text-based functions, so I encourage you to look those up and check them out. All right, so we're going to talk about COUNTIF. So COUNTIF will count instances of whatever you're looking for. So here in C2, I've got a data validation of the items that are over here in the A column. And it's unique, so I'm counting for Greg's in that case. Now I changed it to Hope. So I found 5 hopes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is correct. So let's take a look at that formula. So we got COUNTIF looking in this range based off of this value that we're looking at. So that works out pretty well if we're looking just for one thing. Now let's say we wanted to do 2 names that I want to look up and I want to combine them. So we've got quite a formula for this. So we've got if C6 is not equal to C7. If it is, it'll say, sorry, you cannot choose the same name, because what it'll do is it'll just add, it'll say, hey, I found 4 Gregs, and I found 4 Gregs, and just add them together, and it'll be 8. So we don't want that. And here we're counting the first instance. So in C6, we want to look through that range and find out how many instances. And then the same thing, we're doing COUNTIF in the same range, looking at C7. And we're adding them together, and we come up with 6. So if I change this to Hope, we get 7. If I change this to Bob, it gives me that error message. So we'll do Greg and Hope here, and we're at 9. So next we've got count the number of cells containing some text. So right here we've got COUNTIF in the range, and we're looking for anything. We're using the asterisk symbol as a wildcard. And so it says, I want you to look up anything. So it says, okay, I've got 11 names. So if I remove 1, you can see that drops down to 10. Now this is very similar to the COUNTA function, which counts text. If I was counting numbers, we would just do count. So let's do count. And we have 0. Now if these were numbers, the COUNTIF doesn't find it, but the count does, and COUNTA does. So it's anything that's in here. If we want to count only characters that are, let's say, a certain amount of characters, we can do that. So we've got COUNTIF, and then we've got, using the question mark, I'm using how many characters are in it. So right in this particular case, we're looking for only 3 characters. But if we do 4, because we have 9, and if we did 5, we don't have any other 5. All right, let's take a look at some form controls. There's a couple of different form controls we could use. Form controls, and then we have ActiveX controls. So come over here to the Developer tab. And for form controls, we do not need design mode. We will need it for ActiveX controls. So we're just going to go ahead and turn it on. And then we're going to go ahead and insert a form control, which is a combo box. And our combo box is currently floating on top of our cells, which is different than the data validation combo box. And you can see that it can be pretty large or fairly small, so kind of depending on what you want to do with this. If we right-click on this and we go to Format Control, here's the options. We can make it, we can change the size if we want, we can lock it, the aspect ratio, which is the width and the height. We can protect it if you want. We can do some different properties with it here, put in some alternative text, and then of course our control. So this is really what we need here, our input range. So this will populate the actual combo box with data. So we're going to pick that. And then we're going to link it to a cell. So I want the output of this, which is going to be an index to that cell. And then once we click OK, and we click on our drop-down, we can see we have our different item. Now we're using, here's the index, which is the selected index of the drop-down. So in this case, it's going to be 2 for oranges. And then here we're using the index formula to look up the name so we can verify which one we're selecting. Let's take a look at a form control checkbox. So we're going to do a checkbox. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the name of it. So want fruit. So we just kind of right click on it and we just kind of type in this box. But let's go to form control and see what else we can do with it. So we can change the color of it. We did not have that option with the first one. We can change the line color of it if you'd like. You can do size, protection properties, alt text, which it already put in there for me. And then fruit. So we want to link this back to a cell. So we're going to link this back to this cell here. And click OK. So I changed it. And if I click the check mark, it check marks it as true. Now uncheck it, it's now false. All right, let's try out ActiveX controls. Remember, we need to be in design mode for them, and then we have to go out of design mode to test them out. So we're going to start with doing the same combo box over here. And it has very similar properties. It looks a little different. You can see that things are a bit different on here. If I go to form control, I have my size, protection properties, and alt text, but I do not have where I can pick my range from here. So instead, I need to go to properties, and it brings up this dialog box with other options that we can change. So here we can change the background style of it. We can change the font type and size. We can change our font color. And then here's our linked cell and our range. So unfortunately, they don't have the little icon to let you, select them. So you're going to have to type these in manually. So for the linked cell, I want to dump that to H13. And I want the range to look at the veggies. So we're going to do J2:J4. And then we'll click out of that. We'll close this up. We're going to go out of design mode and we're going to see what happens. So here's our font colors that we picked. And notice when I select it, it didn't put an index like it did for the first one. It just put the actual veggie that we selected. So now we'll do a similar option. We'll go back into design mode and we're going to insert a checkbox. And it's a little bit different. Let's go back and look at form control. Similar to the other one, so we're going to do all of our stuff in properties. So we can change the caption here, so want veggies. We can of course change the colors like we had in the other one. We can change the font if you want, and again the linked cell. So this one we're going to do H12, 12? No, 11. All right, and let's get out of there. We got to turn off design mode, and then we'll true or false. Check it out. Now, since I'm not in design mode, I can just go ahead and redo my controls here, or I can move it around, where I cannot with this one or this one. I can only use them until I go into design mode to look at that. So let's learn how to make this navigational button that I've been using the whole time. So it's very simple to do. We're going to come over here to Insert, We're looking for shapes. So pick whatever shape you want. We're going to do a star. If you type in some text in here, next. I'm going to center my text. And then I want to make my text bigger, which it did not do for me. There it goes. All right. The next thing I want to do is I want to add a link. And so we've got, of course, the external file, so you can link to that. We've already talked about that in the past. But we want to do a place in this document. So here it shows you all of the different tabs. And we're just going to pick the thank you one, which is the next one. Click OK, click out of it, and next. Anyways, I would like to thank you for attending our workshop. Thank you for working with Hope for helping us put this on. If you'd like to donate to her charity, please scan the QR code. And for us at Braintek, if you know somebody else that could benefit from these workshops, or maybe they have some crappy IT, well, we'd like a referral from you. So if you give us a referral, we'll give you a $50 gift card. If they sign up as a client, we'll give you $500. A good referral for us is a company that has 10 to 40 computers that's unhappy with their current support, like a CPA firm, manufacturing, whatever. Anyways, if you know somebody that could benefit, please scan the QR code, fill it out, and we'll be happy that you did that. Again, thank you, and you guys have a great day.